Tonight on To The Point, after questions over transparency, a new close-up look at Governor Newsom's tax returns, and how Washington is responding tonight. A bipartisan push to build more affordable housing is now law, how Sacramento could benefit, and why some lawmakers remain skeptical. The state legislature back in session, and it starts with a major shakeup in leadership within the Republican Party, and recognizing the sacrifices of military families. President Trump signs an order creating a new commission focused on spouses of service members. Well, we're learning new details from the recent tax returns of Governor Gavin Newsom and first partner Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Good evening. As always, thank you so much for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. For example, the governor netted nearly $75,000 as an author. He and Siebel Newsom paid close to $3 million in federal taxes, and the couple donated more than $200,000 to charity, mostly in the form of cash, but also $4,900 worth of Armani businesswear. That's all according to 4 years worth of tax returns, which ABC 10's Becca Habegger has spent hours studying today. Becca, what else can you tell us?
Well, Alex, I poured over some 600 pages in 3.5 hours. The tax returns aren't being made available to the general public, and journalists were given an unrushed window of several hours to review the documents. Now, we couldn't photograph or capture video of anything, so you're getting these insights straight from my pen and paper notes. Let's start with the high-level takeaways. In 2021, the Newsoms reported taxable income of $3.56 million and paid nearly $1.25 million in federal taxes. Now, those higher numbers are because the couple sold their Marin County mansion of 10 years for close to $6 million. In 2022, they reported $1.6 million in taxable income, paying $546,000 in federal taxes. And in both 2023 and 2024, the couple reported $1.39 million in taxable income, paying about $500,000 in federal taxes. Now, in each year, a little over a third of the couple's taxable income went to those federal taxes. So let's talk about sources of income. Other than the sale of that mansion in 2019, the family's income and sources have remained fairly stable, most coming from various investments, including blind trusts the couple placed holdings into when Newsom became governor. A little under a quarter of their taxable income came from salaries. Now, those include Newsom's pay as governor of California. In 2024, the state paid him about $242,000. Income also includes Siebel Newsom's pay of about $150,000 per year net from a nonprofit she founded called called the Representation Project. She also paid herself from a production company she founded called Girls Club Entertainment, but that company reported losses every year, and she stopped paying herself in 2023. Siebel Newsom also received some royalties from her work in the film industry, but never netting more than $700 in any given year. Now, Newsom says releasing his tax returns for journalists is a matter of transparency. And so prior to now, he hadn't released any since 2022. Still, he points to President Donald Trump, criticizing him for not voluntarily releasing his own returns. I asked the White House for a response, which effectively ignored my question about Newsom and said, in part, President Trump is the most transparent and accessible president in American history to the media, and his return to the White House saved the legacy media from going out of business. So, Alex, the bottom line is the Newsom's tax returns show they're actually making slightly less money now than during Newsom's first year in office. They asked for an extension on their 2025 return, so we will review that once it's available.
Yeah, Becca, and I know you're still looking over those documents. She had them all over her desk. Thank you for those updates. And of course, if we find anything else, we'll bring you the latest information. Thanks, Becca. Well, California filed its 81st lawsuit against the Trump administration. Attorney General Rob Bonta says the suit challenges a federal plan to share data on families receiving temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF. The state argues the policy could compromise the privacy of people who rely on the anti-poverty program.
The administration gave no reasonable explanation for breaking from decades of lawful practice, and it tacked on a new condition for TANF funds that our states weren't notified of before we accepted them. I'll say it again, the administration's attempt to raid TANF data is illegal, pure and simple. This notice violates the Administrative Procedure Act, the Computer Matching Act, and the U.S. Constitution.
Attorney General Bonta leads this latest lawsuit with 22 other attorneys general and 2 governors. Well, it's been about a month since the 21st Century Road to Housing Act became law, and now California lawmakers are explaining how it'll impact the state and Sacramento. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen has been following this bill's journey and is here to explain more on not only what it will do, but how getting to this point, really, Jeannie, has been challenging.
Well, Alex, you may recall back in June, the president was supposed to sign this bipartisan bill into law, but canceled last minute. He never signed it. It became law anyway, and now city and state leaders are giving us a better idea on how Sacramento residents can benefit.
It removes barriers that have slowed projects down for years. That matters more in Sacramento and this region.
Democratic Congresswoman Doris Matsui is referring to the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, a new law that took effect in July. It passed with large bipartisan support in both houses of Congress and limits large investors from buying additional single-family homes, speeds up approvals to get homes built faster, especially in the event of a natural disaster, and provides more support for cities to develop more housing. Sacramento is one of those cities as affordability remains top priority.
This law hands them a better set of tools. Let's start with rental assistance demonstration, which is RAD. SHRA has already used RAD to convert hundreds of public housing units into a model that attracts new investment.
Sacramento's Mirasol Village will be one of the sites benefiting from this law. The mixed income housing community has received millions of dollars through federal and state funding. The Housing Act will allow for the expansion of the Rental Assistant Demonstration Program, also known as RAD, and build on the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency's access to federal resources to renovate and update communities like Mirasol Village.
SHRA is delighted to have additional federal support in creating new affordable housing opportunities for Sacramentans. This is a great bill in that it builds upon the tools that are already existing and that we're utilizing.
While this law did pass with bipartisan support, Republican Congressman Tom McClintock was one of the few that voted against it. He told ABC 10 numerous times this will not address affordability or availability.
It's expensive mandates on construction. It's limited permits for buildings. It's exorbitant fees that they charge. It's restriction of land that's available for housing.
But even with the pushback, Sacramento leaders emphasize how useful this will be for the region.
It took the federal government, the state, the county, private investment, SHRA, all moving in the same direction at the same time. The only way we do something like this is when we work together.
And when asked how quickly the Sacramento region can see actual action from the Housing Act, Congresswoman Matsui wasn't able to give a concrete answer, but did say she and her colleagues intend to make sure funding is available for multiple communities throughout the state and hold HUD accountable when it comes to implementation, Alex.
All right, Jeannie, thank you. Still a lot more news to get to, like the California legislature. They are back from its summer break, and it's returning with quite the shakeup. And the fight over California's proposed billionaire's tax got a new endorsement, what it means for the political battle.
And this stretch of heat, well, it's set to continue. Our weather impact alert continues as well. We'll show you how long these temperatures will remain hot coming up next.
But first, another headlines tonight.
He was just phenomenal in the field and was highly regarded and respected.
A former Sacramento area man is being hailed a hero after confronting the gunman at Saturday's deadly mass shooting at an In-N-Out restaurant in Idaho. Austin James Scott is a former Idaho state trooper who jumped into action when a gunman started shooting. 3 people were killed, 7 others were hurt. 2 are in critical condition. Police say the 24-year-old shooter died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The first known deaths tied to the cyclosporiasis outbreak have now been reported. Today, Michigan health officials said 2 people died from intestinal illness and dehydration. Both reportedly had serious underlying health conditions. The CDC says more than 18,000 cases have been identified nationwide. And firefighters in Spokane, Washington say they are gaining some control over a massive 8,000-acre fire. The Spokane Complex fire consists of 3 separate fires, hundreds of homes are destroyed, and 60,000 people were forced to evacuate. Washington State's governor today calling it the worst natural disaster the region has ever seen. All right, Peter, I know you're tracking a fire, so let's go ahead and get straight to it. What are you seeing out in Calaveras County right now?
Yeah, this fire, the Gann fire, is now 75 to 100 acres, according to the aircraft going around it. It's at a moderate rate of spread, and this is one of the things we were talking about with all this heat, is what that fire potential. Again, the brush, the fuels are all so dry, and you can see all that smoke that's coming from that fire because the fuels are so dry, they burn so quickly here. And that heat, that's drying them out. It's still continuing here as well through your Monday evening. Temperatures well into the 100s here throughout a large portion of the valley. 106 out in Calusa, here in Sacramento at 104 degrees. And as we continue through your Monday night, we're still staying hot. That heat advisory continues until 10 p.m. here tonight. We're still into the 80s at the 10 o'clock hour. That puts into perspective how we aren't really getting a lot of overnight relief as this high pressure just continues to park itself there and continue to bring heat, not only here to Northern California, but throughout the Southwest. We got extreme heat warnings here for portions of Arizona, even down towards Los Angeles, and that heat advisory here throughout Central into Northern California and the Valley. We're talking about temperatures 100 to 105 degrees. Again, this is until 10 p.m. here for that increased risk of heat stress or illness here as we continue through the rest of your Monday. That's why we have this weather impact alert. It continues tomorrow as well for temperatures into the low to mid 100s. So just continue practicing heat safety. I know we've sounded like a broken record lately, but we're still dealing with heat tomorrow. In the foothills, temperatures into the low 100s. In the Delta, right around the upper 90s. Some could get close to that low 100 mark, and low to mid 100s here throughout the valley for your Tuesday. 101 my forecast high here for Sacramento. It's all because, again, this high that's lingering through the area. As we get towards Wednesday, a little bit of relief in the forecast, but after that, we start to see that heat build once again as we get towards next week and as the high shifts further to the north. So yeah, that temperature right around 90 degrees in the high country, that's not changing. In the foothills, upper 90s to low 100s, that's not going to be changing here this week. And our 10-day forecast here in Sacramento, it's remaining hot as well. 101 on your Tuesday, that's your forecast high there. By Wednesday, that's the coolest day this week. Alex, coolest day this week is 98 degrees. We build up as we get towards next Saturday, but there's some low 90s in the forecast. Good news.
Yes. All right. We'll take it, Peter. Thanks so much. All right after the break, a shakeup at the state capitol, the leadership change happening as lawmakers return from summer break. And President Trump creates a new commission focused on military spouses who will lead the panel and what it means for military families. Welcome back in. The California legislature is back from its month-long summer recess, and there's already been a major change in leadership. Look at this. Heath Flora, the top Republican in the state assembly who represents Ripon, was removed from his position as minority leader, which he assumed at the start of the year. Tulare County Assembly member Alexandra Macedo was voted in by her fellow Republicans as the new leader effective immediately. But the why behind his ousting remains unanswered, and we have not heard back from neither Flora nor Macedo's office. The Assembly Republicans caucus declined to comment when asked why Flora was out. But sources say that Flora's removal may be a result of a California Post investigation, which revealed Flora is under 2 state ethics investigations related to finances as an elected official, and that he upset fellow Republicans after he voted with Democrats for new tax increases. A source telling us that it was a combination of the bad press as well as questions over his leadership. And it is the final stretch before session wraps up at the end of the month. According to legislative analyst Chris McKaylee, there are just over 1,200 measures that will need to be voted on in the state assembly and Senate. Bills that pass both houses will head to Governor Newsom's desk, of course, for his signature. McKaylee says he expects about 900 bills to reach Newsom's desk. And Newsom will have until the end of September to sign or veto those bills. The legislature then starts a new session with some newly elected members, of course, in early December. But big-name Democrats, including Governor Gavin Newsom, have come out in strong opposition to that billionaire's tax that we've been talking about. But get this, over the weekend, the state Democratic Party voted to endorse the proposal ahead of the November election. ABC's 10 political reporter Jenny Hubb breaks down the political implications.
We weren't surprised. I think the establishment was surprised.
Dave Reagan with SEIU UHW, the healthcare union behind the proposed one-time tax on the state's 200 or so billionaires, is celebrating the endorsement by the California Democratic Party. Reagan says it sends a clear message to Democratic leaders in opposition, like Governor Gavin Newsom and leading gubernatorial candidate Javier Becerra.
Frankly, if I were in their shoes, I would be reevaluating that they are out of step.
Over the weekend, executive board members of the state Democratic Party, including party officers and representatives from all 58 counties met in San Diego to endorse candidates and ballot measures on the November ballot. Chair Rusty Hicks was not available for an interview for this story, but a spokesperson confirmed it was a narrow vote to endorse Proposition 40, 61%. 60% is the threshold for an endorsement.
I mean, what political message do you think this sends that, again, despite those two leaders so firmly opposing this tax, the party and its delegates nevertheless are moving forward with this endorsement?
What it says very clearly is this is where people are at. I don't think it's lost on anybody that Governor Newsom is running to be the president of the United States, and the party that he wants to claim the nomination of in his home state just did exactly what he was very vocally asking people not to do.
A spokesperson for the opposition coalition led by Newsom, Stop the Squeeze, tells us Democratic voters will oppose the tax, quote, when they learn it would force cuts to schools, healthcare, transportation, and housing, or trigger massive broad-based tax hikes due to hundreds of millions per year lost in revenue. That's been the main opposition, that if billionaires leave the state or move assets, the state would lose significant income tax revenue. There's also opposition on the ballot via Propositions 41 and 42. The main purpose of Prop 41 is to prevent new taxes, like the billionaire tax, from being excluded from the state's annual spending limit. So it would likely limit the entirety of the wealth tax revenue from being used as intended. As for Prop 42,
it says retroactive taxes or prospective taxes on any retirement holdings or other personally held assets, like the wealth tax, are prohibited.
Jenny Hutt.
And we reached out to the governor's office for comment on the political implications and were referred to his political team, but we did not hear back as of airtime. And President Donald Trump is making clear his frustrations with Iran. In a post on Truth Social this morning, Trump slammed Iranian leadership for denying talks with the U.S. were happening and stressed that discussions on the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear ambitions were fact taking place. But he didn't say with whom. The post came a day after Trump told reporters that a new round of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran were slated to begin today. But that was met with swift pushback from Iran, which has said it is only currently in talks with Oman over managing the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, global oil prices dropped today. Brent crude, the international benchmark, was down about 4% in trading at $84 a barrel. The price of U.S. crude fell 5% to $80 a barrel. The decline came even as Iran has not committed to fully reopening the Strait of Hormuz, a key global shipping route that we've been talking about. Shipping sources say about 5 million barrels of crude are currently moving through the strait each day. That's well below the roughly 20 million barrels transported daily before the conflict. President Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General Todd Blanche is closer to that Senate confirmation. That's after Blanche, who was the acting Justice Department head for now, late on Sunday, formally rescinded that anti-weaponization fund that meets a demand from two Republican holdouts on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which will now vote tomorrow. The anti-weaponization fund is supposed to be for people who claim the Justice Department victimized them. It stems from a settlement between Trump and the IRS. Capital One says that it closed hundreds of bank accounts associated with President Donald Trump and his businesses in 2021. That was after flagging financial activity that resembled money laundering. Trump has now sued Capital One, alleging that the closures were politically motivated after the January 6th Capitol attacks. Capital One is looking to dismiss the lawsuit, stating the closures followed months of analysis by its anti-money laundering team. Today, President Donald Trump signed an executive order creating a new commission focused on military spouses. The panel will be chaired by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's wife, Jennifer Hegseth, and will advise the president on policies that are affecting military families.
America cannot have the strongest military in the world without the love and devotion of our remarkable military spouses who make the extraordinary sacrifices for our country. They really are extraordinary.
The commission is expected to deliver recommendations each year. And right after the break, a first look at Sacramento's biggest farm to fork feast. Tonight, the dishes and the chefs behind this year's Tower Bridge dinner. All right, before we go today, our team got a sneak peek at what Sacramento chefs will be serving up at this year's Tower Bridge dinner. This was the first time Tower Bridge lead chefs came together to prepare and plate each of the courses for this year's dinner. The menu preview offers an opportunity to learn more about not only the dishes, but also the chefs themselves, as well as the farmers that are really fueling the event this year.
This year, we try to focus on the farmers, local, and also, like I say, it's about culture. Sacramento got a lot of multicultural people, so that's why we make that so special.
The Tower Bridge dinner is on Sunday, September 6th. Unfortunately, the random drawing for a chance to purchase those tickets is now officially closed. But man, that food definitely looks good. All right, thank you so much for watching. As always, thank you for inviting us into your home. If you have something you think we should be looking into, of course, you can email us at tothepoint@abc10.com. I'll see you back here tomorrow night. Have a great evening.